So my name is Alex Bogdan. I go to UMass Amherst. I am a grad student there in my first and last year. I am studying biostatistics, and I learned Romanian here last semester because I'm applying for the Fulbright to do research in Romania.
So why did you choose Romania for Fulbright?
So I chose Romania because they are currently doing research on prediction models for cervical cancer. So Romania has the highest levels of cervical cancer among any European nation. And it's also been known since the 1940s that arsenic naturally contaminates their groundwater. And so the work I'll be doing is developing statistical models to see if there's an association between the latent arsenic exposure and the incidence of cervical cancer.
Oh my god, that's fascinating. So what do you think, what would be the difference between having a language and not having a language as you do that project?
So the big difference is communication. I firmly believe that if I'm going to a country where English isn't the spoken language, that I should learn that language. Not only for civil reasons, but because you really can't experience a culture without knowing the language. Many people in the area I would be going to speak English, but to truly understand the food, the people, the music, the whole sphere of things, I'm going to need to know Romanian. And I looked forward to studying it. And I actually have corresponded with some people in Romania, trying out the Romanian that I learned, my written skills and emails, and they were very receptive of it. They acknowledge that it's got work to be done, but that it's a good place to start. So
Very nice. So is that when you were trying to find the letter of affiliation and all that stuff you were?
that's correct.
Yeah.
I ended up, through a friend of a friend, coming into contact with the director of the Environmental Health Center. Over there, the equivalent of the British Ministry of Environmental Health, or if that's a thing, or the EPA.
Very cool. Oh my gosh. So the research you would conduct would be in English, obviously, right?
It would. So any research that I conduct and any publications that come out of it would be in English. That being said, I look very much forward to at least attempting to write them in Romanian. One of the interesting aspects of publishing in these foreign countries is they'll generally release two versions, one in their home language and one in English. So I studied languages in high school and in college, and this experience was very different, not in a bad way, but just in a unique way, in that I was the only person in the 5 college system studying Romanian, and there was only one person in the system who spoke Romanian. And so every Monday I would take the bus over to Mount Holyoke College, and I would talk with my language partner Alina for an hour each week. And we conversed about a lot of the content that was in the book, but we also talked about things that I might expect to see over there. So using real life situations. So instead of going to a coffee shop and ordering coffee, ordering tea, or a beverage that's more commonly ordered in the country.
As you think about Romania, and clearly you've given the language some thought, are there any things that you're nervous about, worried about, whether, particularly when it comes to the language, I guess, any challenges that you anticipate having, some things that you feel you'll be good at?
So the biggest hurdle I anticipate with the language is the way that they use definitive articles. And that's just, so in English we say the cat or the dog, but in Romanian it's essentially dog the, cat the. So there are little syntactical differences that I think will make it challenging, but all the more rewarding when I do nail it down. I had studied before this point French, Spanish, and a little bit of Italian and Latin in middle school, and Romanian actually builds off of almost all of those languages. So I actually had kind of a really great toolkit when I began learning Romanian, and the parallels were pretty obvious. So I'm more prepared than I think someone without that skill set would be. I still anticipate challenges, but I'm very excited to undertake them. Knowing Russian, when I didn't know the Romanian word, would insert the Russian word. And at times this was okay, but there were also a few times when it was not okay, when it was very bad. So the example I'm thinking of was I was attempting to say my car. So I knew the Romanian word for car, mașina, but I didn't know the word for my, which is male, I believe. I said moi instead, which is the Russian word for my, and apparently that means something very bad in Romanian. So I was corrected, and I'm hoping I don't make mistakes like that while I'm abroad.
Despite not taking the language now, are you engaging with the language, culture, politics, anything?
I am. So while I was studying the language, I looked for online resources to supplement my learning, particularly looking for things that would help me understand the colloquial words in Romanian and also the dialects. There are 4 dialects that they use, so being familiar at least a little bit with each of them is helpful. And so I found Romanian news stations. And so generally in the morning, I will listen to the BBC World News, where I'll look for articles on Romania, and then I will listen to the news in Romanian until I leave for school.
That's like my dream, but that is amazing motivation. Every day you do that.
Every day.
And can you feel like you're improving a little bit, like your comprehension is getting better?
It's very exciting to be able to pull certain words out. I usually can't go a full sentence entirely understanding what they talk about. The focus of the radio cast is politics, so it's a little bit hard to understand sometimes, but I generally get a sense of things. Certain words come up over and over again, and so once I've looked them up and I hear them again and again, I realize, oh, that's what they're talking about. And there are also a lot of cognates in the language, so you can pull certain things out just by knowing other languages. So it's all very synergistic.
Wow, that's
Yeah, it's good to just hear the language too.
Yeah,
Even
just
if
like
you're not
passive-
comprehending it.
Yeah, passive exposure and
Yeah.
listening I think is really good too. Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. So you said you studied multiple languages then? Russian, French, Italian, Spanish. How has studying, I know, an atypical American, look at that. How has studying all of these languages, particularly I guess the less commonly taught, but really any of them, affected your non-language studies? So you're in the science medical fields, right? Like arguably like very different fields. And so how has it affected, your minds, if at all, your mindset when you're learning other subjects or living your life or whatever?
So with regards to medicine, it definitely gives you a more wholesome understanding of medicine through the people you meet, through the opinions that you are exposed to. One thing that I've learned is that Eastern Europeans generally don't go to the doctor when they're sick. They tend to avoid the doctor at all costs, which is something that I didn't know. Also, when I'm considering things like for my research, when I'm thinking about things that may factor into the models that I'm going to make, I have to look at this through an Eastern European lens. I can't look at it from an American lens and think, okay, this factor, and this factor will contribute to the disease we're seeing. I have to look at it from their lens and think, okay, what factors are over here that are more prominent? So differences in diet, differences in habits and lifestyle, social differences. So it's really opened up my perception to the dynamics between these things and how I'll have to make sure that I account for them while I'm abroad.
So in terms of the people that you interact with, I guess your colleagues in the department, students, faculty, whomever, do you find that most people speak a second language, or is it rare to speak a second language?
Within the Department of Biostatistics and Epidemiology, we have one professor from the Netherlands, we have one professor from Germany, we have several professors from China, and we have one from India. And I think that's it for foreign folks. And so there's definitely a greater sense of internationality in our department with regards to awareness of it and differences and seeing the differences play out than there are in other departments I've seen. The Department of Biochemistry did not have a very internationally diverse faculty. But within my department, it's interesting to see all the subtle differences. So how the German professor and the Dutch professor organize their offices differently than American professors would, or how they will eat at different times, or the things that they are eating are different, and just how they conduct themselves. So it's definitely prepared me for what I perceive will be the climate when I go abroad in a research sense.
That's very interesting. What do you think, if you had to kind of sell other people on studying languages, I guess particularly people in the medical field, how would you sell it? Because it seems like you clearly are a firm believer in studying another language. You get a window into their lives, which is really important when you're doing medicine stuff. Mm-hmm. So how would you sell that to someone?
How would I convince them that learning another language
is crucial to their field? I often think that people say no languages, if I do business or econ or medicine, it's not important. I'm not doing the humanities track. But in fact, I think it's all the more important. So I guess, I don't know if you would agree or how you would try to convince someone.
So I'd give an example. So let's say I'm a practicing physician and I have a patient come in, a Hispanic patient, and they have broken English. We can communicate, but not on the level that I could with an English speaker. And so I may ask them what medications they're taking, and they may say that they take aspirin, and they take maybe one or two other medications, but they don't know the names for those. They don't know the English translations. If I knew Spanish, I would be able to understand what they're saying and what those medications are. Or maybe it's about physical activity, and they may tell me in English that they walk But then if I were speaking to them in Spanish, they would say, I walk 3 times a day from here to here at these times with my kids and my dog. And so if I were trying to make a clinical diagnosis where those things were very important, I would be making a very different recommendation if I only spoke English versus if I also spoke Spanish. So, and this can be applied to any field, whether it's business and you're doing a transaction between international partners, whether you are a journalist looking to get information on a story, whether you are in marketing, PR, really anything, the scientific community certainly as well. The ability to communicate effectively in someone else's native language just entirely enhances your experience.
So you think that even as, let's say, a doctor who's not fluent in a language, would you, let's say you do have a Romanian Spanish speaker, whomever come into your office, would you attempt to speak the language? Do you think that even speaking kind of broken Romanian or Spanish might make a patient feel more comfortable? Is that something that you would wager?
Absolutely, especially in the medical setting. So if I have a patient that I know speaks Romanian, there's really no better way to begin the relationship between patient and doctor than by attempting to speak in their language. To them, at least my perception would be that it shows that you are attempting to make a genuine connection with this person. You are not expecting them to have conformed to your expectations. You're meeting them at their level. And I would certainly begin the conversation in Romanian, but I would also absolutely consult a medical translator. And I would probably have them speak to them, but what's important here is that initial meeting, that basically the first impression.
Yeah. So let's say, I mean, hopefully the Fulbright works out, and if it does, or if it doesn't, after that year, do you have plans to continue the language, or is this something that, will be fun for that year, and then you'll probably pursue something else?
So I have plans to continue collaborating with the people I meet in Romania. I am working on the one project with statistical models, but I've also been asked to consult on a few others. And so while I may not be actively learning the language beyond my Fulbright year, I certainly anticipate using it in communications with these individuals. And I also plan most likely to return to the country to either continue doing research or to simply go to visit. I mean, I'll have spent a year there, I'm sure I'll grow attached to it. So.